the majority of the science is there. It's pointing in the same direction. It's all pointing in that high carbohydrate, low fat, high fiber, high water, fresh fruits and vegetables direction. So I got a question from Yarusa Jimenez, and she asks, so eating a diet with the majority of fruit is new to me. What do the doctors say about this? Any medical books you can recommend that back this fruitarian diet and that it's healthy and safe? This is a concern for me, as I would assume is for others as well. Thank you. And I replied to her in the comments, but I thought I'd make a video about it because it's an interesting question. When we're doing changes in our life, dietary changes especially, I guess, we do seek information. It's a good thing to seek information, to learn and to find out whether or not we're doing the right thing. Of course, as a disclaimer, I just want to first say that my main reasoning behind a fruit-based diet is a kind of take a big step back type of approach, rather than thinking that we should follow a certain diet based on information that have been done in studies and that people are talking about in their books. We should take a step back and observe nature, and I find that if I'm looking at nature, I see that all animals in nature eat a diet of raw foods as they appear in nature, and the only food group that I can see fit for human consumption in that regard, in its raw natural state, is fruit. That's the only food that appeals to our senses of sight, of smell, of taste, that we can eat a full meal of by itself without processing, without preparing it. Almost all other food groups require some sort of processing. They're not edible in their raw natural state. So that is my main sort of argument for a fruit-based diet. Now let's get on to the question. So what resources do I recommend? And that's a really great question. First of all, I would recommend that you just look into basic biology books, like anatomy books. Learn about the different parts of the body and the different systems and how they work in unison. So anatomy books, biochemistry, learning about what happens, inside the cell, learning about what happens when we eat and all that stuff. Cellular biology. So biology books for sure. Next up, physiology books, learning how the body actually works. Sports physiology, maybe even, which looks at peak human performance and the different factors that influence that. That's a good way to start. Other things I would look at would be studying our cousins, the chimpanzees and the bonobos, reading about their habits, their habitat, their diet, and see, how they are similar to us, because we're very similar to them, and they eat a diet mostly based on fruit. Of course, we are a different species and we're a very different environment than them, so there's bound to be some variations, but I find it interesting to observe their diet nevertheless, so that could be an interesting topic to research. Then when it comes to specific doctors, what they have to say about a fruit-based diet or even a plant-based diet, the first doctor that comes to mind would be Doug Graham. He's a chiropractor, but he's an expert on nutrition, obviously. He's been dedicated his whole life to this topic. Sports performance as well. He wrote a book called The 80-10-10 Diet, and that's probably the number one resource I would recommend to anyone starting out on a raw vegan fruit-based diet. Read The 80-10-10 Diet. It's a great book. Covers the basics, covers the basic of a fruit-based diet, and will probably help you with some of those doubts that you have, and just essentially just talk some common sense into you, essentially, if you're doubting the fruit-based diet. Other doctors that promote a vegan, high carbohydrate, low fat approach would be people like Dr. John McDougall. We're talking Neil Bernard, Caldwell Esselstyn, T. Colin Campbell. These doctors are not specifically recommending a fruit-based diet, but I've found that looking at what they do recommend, taking it to the logical extreme, a fruit-based diet is the best. I mean, T. Colin Campbell has a book called Whole. It's important to eat whole food, but technically, if we're going to take, his approach is essentially that, a whole food is a big complement of nutrients, and they're all together in a big sort of concert. of nutrition, and we shouldn't mess with that. We shouldn't be eating isolated nutrients. We should trust that nature's design in whole foods is adequate. But as we all know, once you cook something, it's no longer whole. You are denaturing proteins, you are damaging certain nutrients. Cooking denatures food. It is no longer whole. So if we are to trust that nature provided us with whole foods that fit our nutritional needs perfectly, well then it's my opinion that they should fit our nutritional needs perfectly as is. We shouldn't have to do anything to the food to make it edible. That just defies the whole purpose of whole. So he promotes whole food, and whole food is fruit is the only truly whole food that we can enjoy and eat. Tender vegetables to a lesser degree, sure. In terms of low fat, which most fruits are low fat, and there are certain seasonal fruits that are higher in fat, but on a year average, if you're eating a fruitarian diet or a fruit-based diet, you're going to be eating fairly low fat, probably 10% around that average, which is what Doug Graham recommends, and is also what all of these doctors do recommend. Neil Bernard, John McDougall, they'll talk a lot about why low fat is important and the physiology of it all, and why diabetics get better when they cut down the fat intake and increase the carbohydrate intake. And this is contrary to popular belief, but it's not contrary to the medical science of the last 50 years. We tend to think that popular opinion is a reflection of the medical science and nutritional science of the day, but it's not actually. Most of the studies done out there and most of the science of the last 50 years are pointing in the same direction. They're all pointing to the direction of less animal products, less fat, less saturated fat for sure, more carbohydrates, more plant foods, more fiber, more fruits and vegetables. They're all pointing in that direction. The studies cited in certain low-carb circles tend to be of a more isolated nature, maybe just like studies done here and there on specific little things. But when we're looking at the big studies, Teagle and Campbell has a book called The China Study, which is the biggest nutritional study ever done on a population, and it clearly shows that a plant-based diet, whole food plant-based diet, is beneficial in terms of cancer, heart disease, human health in general. So if you are to believe the studies that say fresh food is better than old food and whole food is better than refined food and raw food is more nutritious than cooked food, then well, the only logical extreme to go to is a fruit-based diet. There's no arguments against a fruit-based diet. Literally, there's not a single strike against fruit in the medical nutritional literature that I've come across. I mean, the typical is too much sugar, but you can check out our video about sugar here. And the other one would be that it's not mineral dense enough or not nutritious enough, and that's ludicrous. I mean, there's that's just easy to find out. Just look at 2,500 calories, for example, of fruit, papayas, mangoes, whatever. And you'll see that it meets all the nutritional requirements just fine, so there's nothing to worry about there. And it doesn't make sense that putting fire to our food would improve it, does it? I mean, sure, certain nutrients might become more available, but then again, what have you done to the overall food there? You've created an imbalance in the nutrient profile, you damage certain nutrients, and you're eating a food that you otherwise wouldn't be able to eat in the first place. You haven't evolved eating, roots, even though you might have eaten roots for a while, right? Human beings might have eaten meat and roots for quite a while now, evolving. But if you're looking at the big picture, we've been eating fruits and vegetables for a whole lot longer than we've been eating meat and milk and grains and that sort of thing, because those, especially grains, they require a lot of processing to be edible. I would also recommend that you look into natural hygiene. Authors like Herbert Shelton and T.C. Fry. Those two authors are great authors in the natural hygiene paradigm, so I would recommend that for sure as well. So in general, to conclude, I would recommend that you essentially look into the majority of the science of the day. Look into basic physiology, basic anatomy, biochemistry, and just always take it to the extreme. apply it. Like if less fat is good, and everyone sort of agrees that, oh, we should reduce our fat intake, the general recommendations for the population is generally reduce the fat intake. Well, how much should we reduce the fat intake? If less, if they say 30% fat is better than 35% fat, or would 25% be even better? And that's the case. It's actually, they just say a number because they think that's what the population is going to adhere to. Whereas in reality, optimally, would be even lower. Okay, so always take it to the extreme. Not to be extreme. It's not about being fanatical or anything like that. But we can't just have lots of sort of nutritional notions hanging up in the air and not actually apply them. We need to apply them, and applying them means applying them in the most optimal sense as possible. So if less meat is a good thing and everyone agrees, well, maybe zero meat is a better thing altogether, right? And is there any studies show you must eat meat? No, not at all. You must eat milk? No. They're talking about milk. Okay, milk is a source of calcium, therefore it's good. Well, yes, milk is a source of calcium, but you'll be better off getting your calcium from plants to avoid all that excess protein, excess fat, and hormones and all that stuff. So again, without focusing on specific nutrients, we need to focus on the whole picture. And just to keep it simple, if we can get all our nutrients from fruit, which we can, and avoid all the baggage that comes along with certain other foods providing those same nutrients, and we can get it in the perfect balance, the way it was designed in nature, the way the fruit evolved with us, it's a symbiotic relationship, then isn't that all much better? I think so. And so do look into those books, look into those authors, those doctors. Experiment, be open, always learn, always read, always educate yourself. Don't close yourself off. Listen to the low carbers too. They have some good things to say. The paleo people, they got some good things to say. I think they got mostly stupid things to say, but they got some good things to say as well. They probably think the same about us, the high carb gang. Anyway, the majority of the science is there. It's pointing in the same direction. It's all pointing in that high carbohydrate, low fat, high fiber, high water, fresh fruits and vegetables direction. Okay, so there's nothing to be afraid of. You don't have to worry about crazy deficiencies and you'll die in a month. No. Deficiencies come slowly if they come, and you will notice symptoms, and you can correct it if you notice any deficiencies, and you can ask yourself, why am I having a deficiency? And you can have a deficiency on any diet. There are more factors than just the overall picture. There's little details all the time, like how the soil is, and is this particular fruit developed properly, and are you eating enough, and are you digesting it properly? There's so many details to whether or not you'll be fully sufficient or deficient in something. But on a general note, fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious foods on the planet. Calorie for calorie, they meet our needs better than any other food group. So I think if you found the fruit-based diet, you can relax. You've now found the holy grail of diet. This is our natural species-specific diet. So trust your body, trust that your instincts and your natural urges is a reflection of the food you need to eat. If you truly had to eat meat to be healthy, don't you think a cow or a dog or a goat would immediately look appetizing to you? If you needed to eat meat, I'm pretty sure that looking at a goat, you'll be like, oh, I want that goat. And you want to rip it open, and you want to eat its intestines, and you want to just drink its blood and eat its meat. But that's not really the human way. We much prefer to peel a banana, and we much prefer to just live our peaceful lives eating fruit rather than ripping apart animals with our teeth, which we can't even do. So gotta ask yourself that question: is meat really a necessary part of the human diet? And milk is for babies. So anyway, I'm talking way too much. We also have a free ebooklet, of course, about how to get started with the raw vegan diet on our website, sweetnaturalliving.com, where you can learn about how to get started on a fruit-based diet. We also offer coaching via Skype, to help you maybe understand this diet better, or how to take the next step, whatever that means for you. So please go and read about that if you're interested. And in the meantime, keep learning, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and of course, don't worry. Thanks for watching. See you around.